Alright, so what we're gonna talk about today is teacher clarity in regards to your lesson plans. Um, so last week, of course, we had a PL with Dr. DeWolf, who I know very well. When I got to Bibb County, it was myself, Dr. Watkins, of course, and Miss Wright as the administrators at MLK, and he worked with us to help us turn around MLK. So that was a great privilege of working with him. So with the teacher clarity, first of all, one of the main things is we're trying to make sure that in order to take Ballard Hudson Middle School to the next level with our students taking ownership of their learning, it's going to be very critical for all of the teachers to truly understand what teacher clarity is about. You heard them mention success criteria, rubrics, things like that. Those are things that help the students take ownership of their own learning. As teachers, you already have enough on your shoulders. So one of the things that I'm gonna talk to you all about, of course, as far as teacher clarity is when we look at our lesson plans. Part of teacher clarity is, hence clarity, it's about being very specific. Making sure that at the end of the period or at the end of the day, when your students go home and the parents ask them that magical question, hey, what did you learn today? They can actually give them an answer that not only makes sense, but they truly understood what you were trying to get accomplished with your learning target. So if you look at day one. So if you look at your learning target, of course, the learning target was about citing textual evidence, all right, drawing inferences from the text. That's our learning target. So then when we look at our do now, and you all chime in with your do now, all right, is that do now being very specific in what you want to get accomplished? And it's a yes. If you agree, that's fine, but what was your do now?
Our do now was correcting the errors in the media post. So our do now should always be about citing textual evidence and drawing inferences?
No.
Okay.
Your do now can sometimes be a review from the day before, or just, checking for understanding or checking prior knowledge. That's fine.
Okay.
But long as when you're looking at as a student,
okay,
because a lot of times teachers or as educators, we're worried about our shoes, but how often do we actually put ourselves in the shoes of the student to make sure, okay, yeah, I get it as an adult, but if I was a child sitting in this room right now, would I truly get that? Am I being clear or am I being specific enough? So when you look at your do now, what were you all trying to get accomplished with your do now?
Just for them to make the correct errors in punctuation and spelling, and we did that based upon the fact that ELA told us that they were working on right score, that right score was coming up. So this was to prepare our students for right score.
Okay. So then, even in your do now, you all, the key part was you all said you wanted to work on punctuation, right? Where is that in there?
Punctuation and spelling, right here.
And it's something.
Oh, it's
something real small. You just told me you wanted them to understand about punctuation, right?
Yes.
You got what they're going to do, right?
Yes.
But where does it say, okay, in this particular do now, you're going to address punctuation?
Okay.
You get what I'm saying? Even though it's something very minute, it still lets them know, okay, hey, this is why you're doing this.
Okay.
Because imagine if you were a student, okay, yes, as a teacher, I'm telling you what to do, and I make the correction, but in the back of my mind, do I truly understand why?
Why I'm doing it, the why.
There you go.
So you're looking for the why.
There you go.
Okay.
So then let's look at our activator. Activator is, what are our steps to citing textual evidence effectively? What are you trying to get accomplished there?
This is basically a review because we started with citing textual evidence at the beginning of the school year.
Okay.
And everybody should have these notes on citing textual evidence. Everybody should have their notes.
Okay.
And so we wanted to do a review. This is just to see, what do you know about citing textual evidence?
Okay. So then, and once again, what are the steps to citing textual evidence effectively? So if I'm a student, Ms. Redding is telling me, hey, I need you to be able to cite this textual evidence effectively. What qualifies when I do this, and this deals with the success criteria, how am I gonna know I'm effective? How would I know that I'm able to cite textual evidence effectively? So when you all did the activator, what was it that allowed you to know, okay, Johnny knows how to do it effectively?
We were
I went
looking,
by race.
Race,
They
yes.
used race.
That's
Because race is how we taught it, so if you remember and if you wrote the notes, race gives you the steps to effectively citing textual
Okay,
evidence.
so now, both of you all said race. So then, when writing, okay, what are the steps to citing textual evidence effectively? You can put in parentheses,
race.
hint, okay, if,
I got you.
remember
Okay.
race.
So in print, you just want to see actually what you're asking as well.
We wanna,
Yep.
You wanna break it down. So if I didn't understand it in a question, you want me to break it down
There it is.
to give it to you self-explanatory to
Yep.
you. Okay.
Because now, you all are not only looking at it from the role of a teacher now, and I can see the wheels, now you're also looking at it from the role of the student, because at the end of your period, you want them to be able to master this learning target.
Right.
Yes.
So then, you got that part with the activators, then you went to your mini lesson. What was your mini lesson?
All right, here, our mini lesson was a video on.
Race, I think.
Okay.
No, this.
Was it the one for citing?
Let me see. And this was just a bubble gum.
Okay. Alright, so you have the video dealing with citing textual evidence that, of course, goes back to what you're dealing with in your lesson. So now, the video clip was 1 minute and 9 seconds. Go back to your lesson plan. Alright, so even though the video, your mini lesson deals with citing textual evidence, you showed the video clip. What did they do with the video clip?
We discussed it and we paused it and we asked what did it mean to be we asked what did it mean to be a detective? And what do detectives do? They said find evidence. So we said, how could that relate to what we're doing?
Okay. So then, once again, were those questions within the video, or those were questions that you all came up with?
Those were questions that we came up with.
So then, even within your lesson plan,
Put that in there. I got you.
put it in there. And the reason I say that also is because, well, guess what's going on right now? Your administrators are doing teach, right? They also check the lesson plans. So when they check your lesson plans, you leave no wiggle room. They can actually, okay, I know specifically what they are doing. You don't want to leave any chance to guess, oh, this is very broad. What are they talking about? Then they have to ask you that question. Okay, hey, what were you doing right here? I know what you're trying to do, but how did you specifically do it? Once again, goes back to what Dr. DeWolf was talking about last week with teacher clarity. Clarity is just that. You got to be very clear and specific in what you want the students and even yourself to accomplish. So then, go ahead and get my laptop.
Lily, you knew you were supposed to take your laptop.
And pull them pants off.
See, you gotta put your beads back in your hair. When you have beads, you don't forget nothing.
I did, but who that art? I know who that.
You do. You and Jay were telling that same tale. You still didn't pull them pants up.
They is.
No, they ain't. Hold your jacket up. Hold the jacket up. Pull them all the way up on your waist.
I
I
can't.
shouldn't even see your little red shorts.
What men in red walking around like that? Y'all say, ooh, that nasty.
What?
Go on. Go on, Leland.
Wood.
Alright, so then when you scroll down to your work session. Alright, so your work session is, of course, we're dealing with citing textual evidence. using the collections, your student ebook, interaction lesson, introduction, of course. Alright, so within the work session, what were they doing?
We were reviewing the interactive lesson on citing textual evidence. And this was based on just a short passage.
Okay.
And we also referred back to the race strategy.
What was the name of the passage?
Oh my God.
Or even, but,
It should have been in here specifically. I got you, I'm following you now. I'm following you.
do a little something. Do a
You
little
driving the
something.
car.
Try.
You driving the car. I'm
Alright.
following behind you.
Alright, so then even within our work session, what were y'all doing within the work session?
We were reviewing a short passage on citing textual evidence.
Okay. So you were reviewing, citing textual evidence, using a passage, alright?
Mm-hmm.
Now, if you were looking at the rigor, alright? There's that magical education word, dealing with the rigor. For your work session, dealing with the you do. Alright, I do, you do, we do. Alright, so what would you think about the rigor of your work session for that day? And meaning, was it a high level activity or was it something that was very watered down?
It was watered down, definitely.
Very.
Okay, so then, and depending on, of course, this was the first day that we're looking at, so, possibly starting out the week, getting them back into the groove of things. You can start out down here, but working your way up.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what you wanna make sure that you're not keeping it watered down, you're building up. So then, closing, tell me about your closing.
That's when, first of all, before we got there, we asked about any question on what we did with the ebook interactive lesson.
Mm-hmm.
And then we told them what we were going to do. We were gonna take what we used yesterday
Mm-hmm.
to implement it today, to show what you know,
Okay.
independently. Then our ticket out the door was, how do you analyze what the text says explicitly? How do you draw inference from the text? And I don't know about reading, but I know for me, an overwhelming majority of my students said to break down the text and tell you what it says, we use race.
Okay.
And they said that explicit evidence was directly from the text and inference was the educated guess.
Okay, so then, and I'm just asking because this is the last thing. So when you take your closing, as a student, what I'm doing within my closing, can I relate it back to my learning target?
Yes.
Alright, so go back to your learning target. Alright. Do the two correlate.
Mm-hmm.
Then you on point. That makes sense?
Uh-huh.
Alright? And that's what, and you all do it anyway, but that's what we want everyone to do. When you're thinking about your lesson plans and when you all are collaborating and you're thinking about teacher clarity in mind, the same way we just broke down, and that was just one day. The same way we broke it down, that's what you all want to continue doing when you're doing your lesson plans, keeping the student in mind, because a lot of times we just thinking about it from our point of view. Still keep the high expectations, but am I being very specific in regards to what I want them to learn? And if the answer is no, then of course you adjust.
Okay.
Cool?
Mhm.
All right,
Thank you.
appreciate you.
So we just gotta do the whys and we got you.